episode 152.
The Ultimate Deck Podcast. Need a show about outdoor living? This is where it's at with your hosts, Shane Chapman and Way Laurent. Thank you for tuning in. Now let the show begin. Yeah. The Ultimate Deck Podcast. Let's go.
Brr, Wade.
Winter.
Chilly out there.
It's winter.
Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Finally back on the rig here. We've got Bryce absent today and you're in town, so why not?
Why not?
Let's get after it.
I forgot how to do this stuff. I had to change the mic setting. I had to find a pair of headphones.
Yeah. Thankfully, Bryce had some foresight into him not being here, so he set some things up for us because I forget what's all required to do that now.
Yeah,
too.
you're like, I think I just pushed this button now.
My biggest thing was like, I hope he put the memory cards in there because if not, I don't know where he keeps them. Like, we'll be SOL.
Yeah, it's like me when I used to work out. It takes
You
months.
used to work out?
Yeah, when I was playing hockey and midget, I used to exercise.
Oh,
but,
way back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
But like it would take months and months and months to work up to the point you could do 50 push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes days
A week to
until
lose it all.
you
Yeah.
can't, right? And then it's like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wade's back. Look at that.
Eric Theroux, your buddy Eric.
Yeah. And Quigley is in here. He says hi. Hello to everybody. Happy to be back.
So yeah, today's supposed to be
like
not
this place.
too terrible as far as a high, but it's been freezing at night the last couple nights, and so you wake up and it's like there's frost in the windshield.
Slippery outside.
So, and I think we're supposed to get back up to 20 degrees this weekend, which is about 70-ish Fahrenheit. So not bad this weekend, but we just had a couple days here where it was like the high was 4 or 5 degrees, which is like what, 40?
Yeah.
And so it's been a little bit chilly the last couple days.
Rain, which then turned into snow. You got a little wee dusting. It didn't stick around, right? But
Yeah.
that first snowfall is always it just sucks.
It's a dreaded day.
Yeah.
In our industry. It's like as soon as it snows, it's like, okay, well, DIY John, he's packing her in.
It's
He's
over.
not like doesn't matter if it's 35 degrees the next week.
Yeah.
It snowed once, so the season's over.
Season's over. So.
That said, it seems like DIY John, most of those did their projects in the spring.
Yeah, that's right.
It was already slow.
It was kind of slow in July and August, so
Yeah.
I don't think there's no surprises coming now.
Anyway, for our uselessness, since Bryce isn't here, we didn't put anything formal together, but we were just chatting a little bit about hockey because we're Canadian. And so,
Yeah, what else are you going to talk about, right?
Yeah. And so you have switched allegiances.
I think so.
Which I feel like this doesn't just happen all willy-nilly. Like this takes that's a big thing when you switch teams.
Yeah. So I have 2 jerseys that are for sale now.
So what's behind it? You've been a hardcore Oilers fan for as long as I've known you. Why the switch? And is this like a real switch, or are you just like, it's fun to watch?
I think I'm going to cheer for them this year, and I think like if they end up playing against each other, I think I'll cheer for the Kraken. I believe that
Really?
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
So there's sort of 2 reasons, and this will end up changing, but the first reason is the Oilers have let me down for so long.
Yeah.
Like they're the only thing they can win right now is a draft,
Right.
and then they pick the exact same player.
They're pretty good at winning drafts.
So it's awful. It's like they have a good team on paper and they cannot win. They just can't. And so that's frustrating.
Yeah.
And I ended up being an Oilers fan in the 80s, but
When they were crushing.
Yeah, but I didn't like accidentally pick them. So my uncle lived in Edmonton and he took me to a game, and then it was like I ended up at a game and was like, well, this is fantastic. I'll cheer for these guys. And then it turned out I didn't even know how good of a team it was because it was the first NHL game I'd ever gone to, and it was like you look at that roster now and it's like they probably still would win the cup. Like if you could put that same team on the ice, they'd probably still do it. So
I like that quote. Speaking of like old teams that could still win, you remember that quote? There was a quote that said, some reporter asked Michael Jordan if he thought that the 90s Bulls could still beat LeBron James and like one of the stacked teams these days, and Jordan's like, "Yep, I think we could beat him."
Yeah,
and then he's like, "By how much?" He's like, "I don't know, 8 or 10 points." And then he's like, "Oh, really? How come such a small margin?" He's like, "Well, because most of us are 60 now." It was like one of the greatest interview quotes ever.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So they're like, I believe that too. I think if you put Pippen and Rodman and Jordan on the court, that they would contend. but they played the game differently. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
LeBron would be broken and bruised and injured at the end of that.
He plays like a soccer player.
That's right. Man, I watched Malice in the Palace the other day.
Yeah.
Whoa. That is
one too.
unbelievable.
There's some good sports documentaries on TV right now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay,
Anyways,
so the Oilers let me down
yeah.
all the time, and so that's one reason. And then the second reason is the Canadian content that is on the Kraken team. So we grew up in Arcola. There are 2 kids on the Kraken roster that are from Carlisle. Both the
Oh, really? I
Fleury
didn't know
brothers.
this.
Yeah, so there's 2 Fleury brothers. They're both there. One is playing and one is in their farm system right now.
Okay.
Jordan Eberle is on the team.
Yeah.
Regina kid. Braden Shorts is on the team. Wilcox, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And so they have 4 Canadians or 4 people from Saskatchewan on the roster right now. And they have 17 Canadians on the team. And so it's like, well, that's a pretty Canadian team. And I like the colors. That's a half.
Sold.
That's a half reason.
You
Like,
sold me.
The colors
So I'm
are
not
fantastic.
diehard. I don't follow the NHL too much. I'm not diehard one team or another. I grew up as a big Flames fan. The only game I've ever been to was an Oilers game. Same reason my aunt and uncle lived in Lloyd. They were big Oilers fans.
Yep.
We went to a game one time. And it was that era. However, I remember specifically that Gretzky was out for that game. I don't remember why. Or maybe he was just recently traded to LA or something. But I remember like Messier and Tikkanen and those guys were still there.
Yeah.
Still watching those guys.
Gary
Only
Curry.
game, but for some reason I didn't end up being a huge Oilers fan coming out of that for some reason. I was still, because I was a Flames fan going in. So
Yeah. You're probably not a hockey fan. You know what I mean?
Not huge. Like when I went to that game, I was probably still playing. I was probably 10 or
Right.
12 years old or something, right? I was probably still playing hockey at the time, and I was collecting all the hockey cards and everything, but I just never grew up with an allegiance. After the Flames thing wore off me a little bit, I just didn't grow up with an allegiance to anybody. So
The
I've
part
been
that's
kind of
nice
like, I should pick somebody again, but
About the Flames is they still have that same rink. Like you could still go and,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're actually having a civil election in Calgary. They might end up changing leadership there, and then the one guy is
Right.
promising a new rink.
So I almost, like, when the Vegas night started and Justin and Greg were trying to flip everybody, and for much similar reasoning, it was like, they've got some Sasky boys in the team, and like, it's, direct flights and everybody goes to Vegas. We love Vegas anyway. Let's just cheer for them. I was like, that's pretty solid reasoning. So maybe now I need to use that same reasoning to become a Kraken fan. Because I think the jerseys are pretty sharp.
They're
Like the
awesome.
swag would be pretty sweet to wear.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Anyway,
Uselessness done.
that's it. Precision's excited that the boys are back together. Wade's in town. I'm bringing some spicy chips. So that's Evan. He has
I'm gonna
actually
be gone.
bought some more. He's in possession of chips.
I'm out.
They're sold locally now, actually.
Good. That's good. Bring 10 or 12.
You're gonna have to show up fast because
45 minutes. I'm
we're out of here. So anyway, today we're gonna get onto our topic and let's just make it happen. What's the button here? We've only had that button programmed in there for about 30 episodes now.
What
and
is
I
that?
still have to search for it every time.
What is it?
That's, well, do you not, so
I don't
you're not
listen.
on the podcast anymore, but you don't listen to it either?
No, because
Like,
I
you're
watch
just
it live on my phone, so I don't like.
Oh,
on
I
your
see.
phone, you
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
actually get a bunch of this.
Well, when
stuff,
you listen
right?
to it, we have music now that we sting in the uselessness. There's a little intro song,
Okay.
and then when we get into the topic, there's one. So,
Okay.
Welcome to the behind the scenes episode
Look
of
at this.
the podcast.
You
here
guys
now.
should come sit in this
You've
chair.
grown
This
up.
is-
You actually still make it in once in a while with this one.
voyeurism. Now you know. Now you know.
So, today's topic, we're actually flashing back to an episode we did back in February, and it was about 5 trends for 2021 outdoor living, and it was a sponsored article by Trex and HGTV's Alison Victoria. They talked about the 5 trends they expected to see. Of course, they all had some sort of Trex twist to them because it was an advertorial, but nonetheless, we thought at the time it was probably fairly accurate.
Yeah.
And so we discussed them.
Yep.
And now the end of the season is here, and you're like, why don't we revisit that one and just talk about, like, did those trends actually materialize?
Yeah. Let's recap.
Sure.
Did they blow it? Did we blow it because we talked about it and said that was going to happen?
Yeah. Butterfly effect. If we would have talked about it. So the number one was the idea of the outdoor office. Do you remember?
So I would say I had 0 of those happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm a huge fan of this idea, though. And
The idea was great,
Yeah.
but do you think anybody actually did it?
I can't say that many people walked into the stores and said, like, when I get my deck built, I want to make sure I have an area for work, like an area, an outdoor office.
I didn't hear that at all.
I still really like the idea. I still think that probably makes its way into high-end decks at times. Like if you're got somebody that's coming in here and is like $100,000 deck, and I want to make sure it's got a living room and all this stuff like that, those type of decks might make room for an outdoor office. But I also think on the average deck, outdoor office is not one of the top, 3 spaces somebody might want on their deck. It's like I want a barbecue zone, and I want a place to sit and eat, and I want a place like a fire pit and sit and lounge. Office is like number 5, so the budget's there, sure, but like
I wonder if it's if it has partially to do with the fact that everybody thinks of decking as a relaxing space.
Certainly there's part of that. I think what was behind this, the timing of this article was or maybe January or something. So it was a year into the pandemic when everybody was stuck at home and was working from home.
Yeah.
And so I think the thought was maybe like, hey, you're home working anyway. Why not go outside and kind of be in a more chill space to work? Like enjoy the outdoors at the same, take the opportunity. You have to work at home anyway.
Yeah.
Go outside and enjoy the sun at the same time. I still think it's a great idea. I would still do it this personally myself, but the idea of people putting in a permanent fixture of an office on their deck maybe didn't happen as much as we thought it would.
Yeah.
Still like the idea.
Yeah. There's like some screen glare, and there's probably a few struggles with that.
Yeah.
Windy but anyways, I think for me it would be the idea of not mixing work and pleasure. It's like,
sure, there'd be some
this is where I go to relax.
mental hurdle with that for some people for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Deck Dogs thinks
that
the
one
number
sucked.
one trend in 2021 was to install whatever you can get your hands on.
Isn't that the truth? Right.
So I think, what do I think? I don't know that we fell, like, obviously there were some struggles for sure, but I think we managed okay getting our hands on materials in not crazy amounts of time usually.
Certainly did better this year than last.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think that there was any one of the brands that we carry that we struggled with more than another. Like,
no.
Last year was like, I think in
Last year was
2020
bad.
that was like, whatever you can get.
Yeah,
like
last year was bad.
there was no answers to anything. Anyway, we put a lot more material on the ground, I think probably at the start of this year than we had before too, maybe, and maybe that helped. We just had stuff here early.
Yeah.
So number 2 was the idea of adding extra space to your deck via the use of a deck drainage system. So you can kind of turn that under deck space into usable patio space. I've always been a fan of this idea.
Yeah. So I would say that I did not see that happen more than normal.
No, I don't think that, I wouldn't say there was a surge in it. No, but it's always been a great idea, and it continues to be a great idea. But I don't think that
one that's going to happen in Saskatoon that starts next week. The guys are going to start building it, and that deck is only 5 feet high, and they're putting drainage in there. They're going to do the rain escape in it.
Yeah,
and so
there's one for sure happening in Regina right now too. Queen City's building that has rain escape, and it's only 4 or 5 feet tall too. But it was just storage. They wanted dry storage.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. Like at that height, you're only doing storage, and so to me, that's an upseller, and that's not a typical ad for drainage. 10 feet high, absolutely
makes sense.
And
yeah,
you're going to do a patio, and it's a walkout, and blah blah blah.
But I think when you look at the idea of, so when people don't have dry space under their deck for storage, they typically plop down a shed somewhere in their backyard.
Yeah, what's a shed cost?
So if you're going to do 100 square feet, like let's say the material, rain escape material might cost you $6 or $7 a square foot Canadian right now. So for 100 square feet, you're $600 or $700. That's probably cheaper than a full finished shed and doesn't take up any extra room. That's the biggest thing. You don't lose 100 square feet of yard space.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't have to worry about like permitting it for anything. Like a shed, it's different everywhere. But in Regina, I think if you actually get to 100 square feet, you do require a permit. I think it's like 96 square feet or something like that. So an 8x8 shed, you're okay. 10x10, you're not.
Yeah.
So then you have to worry about dealing with permits and whatnot too. Like
8 by 11 3/4, good to go.
Yeah, yeah. So you can really give yourself some storage space without chewing up more space in your yard, without worrying about permits, and it's probably cheaper than buying or building a shed.
Certainly.
So,
and faster, because it happens at the same time your deck's done. It's not another project.
Right. And it's just more hidden visibly. Like aesthetically, you don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
Because you're also going to close
Well,
that
where were
in
these
then.
selling points in the spring?
I don't know.
Thought about it more. Yeah, Scott, no real uptake in drainage in the Colorado area either. So Denver. Yep.
Number 3 was, now here's one where I do think there was a major uptick. Pools, spatios.
Spatios? Spanish for spa?
Can we now just invent a product to fit that name?
Spadios.
I really like the name.
Okay.
So pools, spas, and water features. They expected people to really invest and put money into the backyard in pools and hot tubs and whatnot.
Check.
Like, we don't sell those things, but we're friends with people that do. And it sounds like those were big time in demand the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that continued. That was no surprise because that started in 2020, I think. It was like, you want a hot tub, you order it now, you'll get it in 10 months. Like, you plan for next year for your hot tub.
Yep.
And like,
that's continued.
Yeah, these guys usually bring in a semi-load of hot tubs and then try to sell them when they get there. And it sounds like this year was like, no, when the semi-load gets there, you just deliver them because they're all sold already.
Mm-hmm.
So that for sure happened. I don't know about the in-ground pool guys. I suspect they were probably just as busy.
So I talked to a few guys up in the Saskatoon market, and it sounds like they're booked until mid next year with pools.
Right.
So,
and I feel like those guys were already pretty busy because I don't think there's a whole lot of them here. Like, I think in Regina there was only maybe like 3 or 4.
There's 2 or 3
pool companies. Like maybe the above ground ones, you'd find more people that would do those. But as far as like actual pool companies that would come in and dig in a pool in your backyard, there was only, I think, 3 or 4 to begin with.
Which is lots because there's probably not that many going in a season here.
Yeah, maybe. And so, but those guys are always busy, but you also have a shorter season to do them too, right? So it doesn't take long for them to get booked up. I imagine to put a pool in takes a couple weeks.
Yep.
For a basic one even, right?
Depends what it is. If it's a liner one that you drop in, dig a hole, drop it in, or if you're going to actually dig it in.
So, their capacity might only be able to do 10 of them a year. I don't know, right? Yep. So it doesn't take long for them to get booked up. But certainly...
that one definitely increased.
This one increased. Definitely. I got the itch. I was like, man, it would be nice to have a pool in my backyard. We're not moving until I can put a pool in my backyard. That's what I told them.
I was like, you have no room in your backyard.
No, not in my current house, no.
Push the garage over.
Well, but you saw my little rink I built last year, though?
Right there.
I could have a little 7x20 pool as well that would just freeze over. Kill 2 birds with one stone.
You don't even have to drain it.
No, yeah.
Do you need a cover? Yeah,
honestly,
I'm going to let it freeze solid so I can skate on it.
At my kid's age, 7 or 8 inches of water is probably like just as fun as a full-blown pool anyway.
Yeah.
So, number 4 they mentioned was adding luxury touches. So, built-in cushions for your seating, fire tables, water features, just kind of like these luxury accessories. People really start to accessorize their decks as opposed to just like buying a patio set and plopping it on there. They started adding these luxury benefits that the average person's not putting on their deck.
Pizza ovens.
Yeah, pizza oven's huge one, right?
So I
patio
think that
heaters.
probably checked off. That likely worked.
Yeah.
Likely went.
For sure. So, and I really like this category or this trend because it just takes it to your deck to another level. The idea of just building a square 12 by 16 deck and plopping a patio table down on it is like, it's pretty boring. Like, it works. Functionally, it works. You get it to go outside and eat at a table outside. But I think where it's really cool is when you start to adding these cool features that not everybody has, and it starts to feel like they described it as like a resort hotel in a way.
Right.
And yeah, that makes sense. When you start to have these little like spillway, little water fountain things and the little fire features that are happening, and it's just like all adds to this like really luxury ambiance on your deck. Like, that's pretty cool, especially at night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those things are, like you said, they just set it apart. And I talk about this with lighting with people. And so when we're in the store and we're shopping and people are, they've basically somehow cracked and given you a budget, there's an idea of what they're going to spend on this project. Carly sells different than I do. So Carly starts at the top and he sells the most expensive decking and the most expensive framing and the most expensive railing. And I often try and sell with like most value. And so I will be like, okay, this is your number. Let's do a entry level or a mid-level board and let's put lighting in and let's do a fancier railing with nicer caps and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because I think that when people come to your house, they don't care if you have the most expensive gray deck board. Mm-hmm. If you have lights on your deck, what happens is they walk in and they're like, holy smokes, you have lighting on your deck. How great does that look?
Yeah.
They have no idea if it's a gray Trex board or if it's a gray Moisture Shield board, or they don't know.
Yeah.
All composite is Trex.
Yeah.
To the average consumer.
Yeah. To your point, if somebody showed up in my house and was like, we're going to give you $5,000 to spend in your backyard. Would you like to upgrade your existing composite decking to a fancier composite decking with that $5,000? Or would you like to add a fire table and a patio heater and some light, like a lighting package? And
No brainer.
It's not even a conversation. I have cheaper composite decking and I'm really, really happy with it. I like it. But what I would like to add to my deck is
a heater,
a privacy wall.
Yeah.
I'd like that. I'd like to build in my barbecue. I'd like to add a heater. I'd like to add more lights, or some lights to my deck.
Some lights on the stairs.
Like all of those things are still things I would like to do.
Yeah.
But so yeah, 100%. Yeah. So there you go, Carly. He's in here. I think he was at one point. You're selling wrong.
No.
No. You said he was selling wrong.
No, I said he sells different than me. There's no such thing as wrong.
Yeah.
Because I appreciate that he sells our expensive boards.
Yeah.
I don't.
I hear you. Now, what we have to do is combine you two and sell the expensive boards with all the extras.
He certainly has a better shot at it than I do because I don't even start with the expensive. I start with middle and light.
Yeah.
So,
and then the fifth and final one, Carly says, "Did a bus just run over my ankle?"
Yeah.
Yep. Fifth and final one was the DIY market. They expected that DIY was going to become stronger. I guess more people were going to tackle their own projects.
Yeah.
I don't know if this played out for us or not. I don't know if we ended up with a higher percentage of DIY. It's hard for us because we're growing still too in both markets, and like our percentage of contractors is growing year over year. So it's hard to say, but certainly DIY has always been a strong market for us.
Yeah, and I don't think that our contractors took a hit this year.
No.
Like, most of the contractors that I talked to on the daily were swamped. They were like 3 to 4 weeks out. So they were as busy as ever.
Yeah, certainly it didn't affect them if this trend was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it did happen, you would have to think that they wouldn't be as busy.
I think maybe what this is based on is the fact that people were home. The story last year certainly was that people are home, they've got this extra time, they're doing all these renos. So it's like you're home, you're off work, or you're working from home or whatever. You've just got more capacity to do this. So therefore, logically, then DIY should happen more. It absolutely did in other areas, like as far as paint sales to the roof. I'm guessing most of that was DIY.
Yeah.
Like all these renovation things, probably a lot of them was DIY. Decking space, I'm sure it probably did too. I don't have any stats to back it up, but
yeah.
But certainly it's always been a thing. I feel like we got inundated with DIY sales early in the year. Like I feel like we were very strong DIY market March through June.
And so maybe that's what happened. Maybe the DIY was all early.
I think
because our contractors were a little slow in the spring.
Yeah.
If we recall that, if we think back, they probably were a bit slower.
Yeah.
But then they got going in May, June, July, and
But that massive March we had a big sales in March, which is strange. I think was mostly DIY.
Yeah.
And I think they were all a lot of them were rushing to beat the lumber increases that were coming and everything else. But
and product availability, because you just went off a year of no availability.
Right. Yeah.
So I know there was a couple customers that were like, I'm paying. This happened in January.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm paying now and I want it. I was like, oh, I don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't care. When it lands.
When it gets there, it's mine. Yeah. So I'm sure that is a thing. So I don't know. I think
3 out of 5.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say the outdoor office hasn't really materialized, at least in a mass appeal kind of way.
Yep.
The drainage probably didn't uptick.
That was Scott's
just
word.
kind of always been good.
Uptick.
And continues to be a good thing.
Yep.
I honestly think that probably the trajectory of drainage system likely is on a steady incline. Maybe it didn't spike right this year, but I'm like, you should, people should. You should do that.
Yeah.
If your deck's more than 4 feet off the ground, it's something you should seriously consider.
Yep.
So
doesn't have to be the rain escape. So anything on that list anything you'd put on that list that wasn't there? Did we miss?
That was big this year. I don't I think maybe I would say privacy walls. I think they've been growing recently anyway, but I think it's something that damn near everybody is considering on their deck nowadays.
Do you think that's because there's a few more options out there? So even just in our store, we have a few different options. We used to only have really the aluminum panels.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have sort of 3 different options, right?
Yeah, I think that certainly helps for sure. Because I think, they're becoming more attractive right? It's no longer just a functional thing that you're trying to do. It used to be only glass, and unless somebody was doing their whole deck in glass, like they didn't want to do the privacy wall in glass. Some people don't want to use glass in their deck at all. They don't want to worry about cleaning it and stuff. So then the idea of putting a taller section of glass there is like not very attractive.
Yeah.
But now, you know, especially with the Hoff system or some of those, it's almost like it's an aesthetic feature as much as it is a privacy feature.
Correct.
It just looks really good.
Yeah, so you do those Hoft walls, and so you put the post in, you slide some deck boards in. If you're doing a composite deck, you can put cedar in there to accent it.
Yep. And then the accessories you can do on it too, right?
And then you get the planters, and you get some hooks for your towels if you're around a hot tub. I think the privacy wall game is changing.
Yeah.
And I think with that, you'll start to see more people doing it. I know that everybody would come in and be like, I want to do a privacy wall out of wood, and I want it to be cool. And 3 years ago, I was like, okay, screw a 2x4 or a 4x4 to the frame, and then you're going to like make this up. Well, what does it look like? It looks like whatever you dream up and then build.
Yeah. There was not many out of the box solutions.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think the privacy wall guys have now hit the mark because people were looking for out of the box solutions. I just want to fasten something there.
Yeah.
Here you go.
And I think that the market has been incubated for a little bit here now because of the size of city lots shrinking, and like just city living in general has made people start to want that anyway. And then the last 2 years, the fact that you've been home in your backyard more has just reminded people like, right, yeah, I really do need these privacy walls now that I'm actually out here using this space too. Yeah. So I don't know, like, because we had some people, I know, like I'm not in the sales floor much anymore, but I know there's a few jobs that happened this year that was like, take down the rail that's there, put up a privacy wall. Yeah. So it was like, it wasn't just new decks all the time either. People were changing their existing layout to add privacy to their their
deck. I think it's funny, the sell, like the way those things are sold is so hilarious. The customers come in and they're just like, I don't hate my neighbors. Like they're pretty good people, but I just, you know, and they won't say it. It's just like, it's okay. You're allowed to have privacy. You have drapes in your house. You have
the few times that I've talked to people about that and that's come up that way, I always ask them like, so then you try to choose your deck board and it's like, well, if you use Wolf, it's finished both sides. No, it's like, okay, well then you don't like them that much then. You tried to say like, you're not willing to spend a little bit of money on them about their opinion.
Maybe they'll go halfers on it with you.
Yeah. If you don't care what the backside looks, you don't care that much.
That's funny.
So anyways, anything, what about you? Was there anything that you kind of felt, because you're on the sales floor more up in Saskatoon than I would be here, so you'd have more of a finger on the trends. Anything you saw?
I don't know. I actually sort of thought that people would, I thought designs would be a little more, like I thought people would ask for more designs, and that didn't happen. And so
I think that's, it depends on your budget, but I think like that's such a wise decision, to be honest, to hire a designer to plan this out. I'm not saying it even has to be our service, but any designer to plan your stuff out. What is the cost really in the whole grand scheme of things? Like we do charge for our 3D design service, but that means you get you get my attention on your project for like undivided, for like just focusing on what your backyard's going to look like for hours or days of somebody who's like, who knows all the products are available and knows how to use the space effectively and has a creative bone in their body to come up with some things that you might not have thought of yourself. And at the end of the day, what does it cost? Like we have tiers from $100 to $900 and you get half that back, and you're going to spend $30,000 on your deck.
Yeah. I think
what's a couple $100 on a 30,000?
Well, I think that's the key. I think, like I would say the majority of stuff we sold in Saskatoon, and maybe it's because the store is still fairly, like it's in its infancy still, but I would say the majority of the decks we sold were less than $10,000.
Yeah, fair, yeah.
And so if you're only spending $10,000, then
you don't have a lot of flexibility in your design.
The design for
anyway, sure, yeah, I would agree with that.
But
sure.
if you
that $100
pop over 15, if you're up over that, then you should at least be doing the $100 one.
Yeah, if you've got a budget there that you can get a little bit flexible and do things a little bit differently on your deck, then it's nice to have somebody else's creative input and to be able to see what's going to happen before you do it. Because, for example, I just talked about this before we started the show. We had this customer we're doing this big, nice design for out in cottage country, and she's super excited. I took all of her guidance and I came up with a design that I thought ended up like I struggled with it a lot because they're right in the bush, like they're right in the forest. There's a lot of trees around. It was like the space was limited to kind of use. She wanted things in certain spots. So I designed it and I struggled with it. It took me a long time to kind of get the ideas to come together and flow. And then at the end, I was like, this is badass. What I've come up with. This is really cool. Yeah, but sent it to her, came back. I like 0% of it. Wow. Okay. I told her, I was like, and she felt so bad. I was like, she's like, you did your job perfectly. Like you did everything I asked for. It's just not it. I just don't like it. And I was like, don't feel bad. Like that's why we do this. Would you want to have built that first and then found out that you hated everything about it? I was like, don't feel bad. Like, 90% of the time I hit. 90% of the time I send it and the feedback is usually like, oh my God, this is so good. It's okay to miss once in a while. Yeah. So let's start over and get it right.
And so then let's talk about the deck you sold where you did the design and the guy's budget doubled. So as a contractor or as a store that sells product, yeah, like we should be pushing design all the time. The guy came in with a $15,000 budget and he ended up spending $25,000.
Yeah, because
you designed it, showed it to him, and was like, "Well, shoot,
there's no way I'm not doing that.
I really like
I'll figure it out."
Yeah. So yeah, there's certainly some advantages for it. Not that we need to like pillage everybody all the way down till they have no money, but like, it's certainly an amazing sales tool.
Yeah.
So I thought that would have been increased, and the reason I thought that would have increased was that. It would have been based off the idea that the DIY market was going to be a lot stronger. And so they wouldn't have the people there selling to them. They wouldn't have the contractor explaining how it was going to look and what was going to happen. So I was building off of the idea that more DIY were going to be doing it. And as a result, they would be asking for pictures.
Some help along the way. Yeah. So. What about the steel framing products? Would you call that the beginnings of a trend this year?
I think it's beginning. We certainly invested in it.
Yeah.
And what did we sell? Not a ton, 3 or 4?
3 or 4 jobs worth of it, yeah.
So that's a 300% increase over last year.
Yeah, and in the middle of the year, late in the year actually, they announced their pergola plans with the Fortress Evolution pergola options, which we apparently have a couple that might be on the go. One contractor here says he's got one sold, and then we're looking at doing something with the Humboldt Broncos Memorial Gardens.
It's got to be done by next Thursday. So
what's got to be done by next Thursday?
The plan for that. We have to get that back to them.
I see. I was like, built?
I think the whole thing's done.
Podcast over. We got you too.
Yeah. So anyways, we need to get after that.
So from what I've heard from the Fortress rep, he's like, those things are taking off. He's like, I don't know that we even understood how much people were waiting for this solution.
A no maintenance.
No maintenance, good quality, like strong.
Lots of people were waiting for that. Again, it was like they would ask for it, and the solution was basically, it was an AZEC one, right? Yeah. It was like, here's your PVC pergola.
Yeah. Because your other options were to go buy some like kitted out like box store pergola for $3,000. You go buy a thing in a box and it's like, it is what it is. You just put it together and then it looks like what it looks. Right. The nice thing about the Fortress one is that it still has some workability like wood. You still can accessorize it. You can still make it like the style of the pergola. It can be modern, it can be traditional, it can be whatever. Like you still have some flexibility in the design of it, but it's using materials that are all maintenance free and it's black, like it looks good with a lot of existing decks with the railing and whatever else.
Put a cedar privacy wall on the side.
Yeah. I just
take those Oasis U channels. You could fasten the U channel on the side and then
yeah. I think there's like
hot damn.
You start accessorizing those things a little bit with a little bit of cedar or even a little bit of like composite decking here and there, some trims, and I think you could really come up with something cool. So I'm excited to see how that develops because right now there's not many of them out there. It's kind of like the the president of Fortress, whatever, did one in his backyard. Like there's a few out there they're showing pictures of, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. But I'm excited to see what contractors start coming up with.
Yeah,
because there's some really creative guys out there. They get their hands on it and they start doing things, and it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So that was that too.
That was it. Steel framing. It's happening. It's taken off. So.
Yeah. I think that'll be a big thing, continuing to grow again. It's just like can't call it a trend yet, but certainly the conversation is happening a lot more with that. So. Anyway, this is getting posted late. This is actually last week's podcast we're recording it now, and we've got one more to do. So for those that are on Instagram Live right now, they get to tune in for a double header here. But we've discussed this one ad nauseum, so it's over. So see you next week. Peace.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for listening to the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Now you know what we're about. Check the site, come and shop. UltimateDeckShop.com. Hit us right away for sponsorships or tell us if you want to collaborate. Let's go. Check us out on any social networks. Thank you for listening.